Sometimes, sequels to great games are amazing. Sometimes they're a small misstep from the original. And other times, they completely miss the mark. Blood 2: The Chosen is in the third category. The original game is a true classic of the FPS genre during the DOS era, and a sequel was an ideal candidate of a truly fantastic follow-up. Updated graphics, meaning upgraded gore mechanics, and more modern control schemes, allowing for more finesse during gunplay. Granted, you don't really need finesse in the first game as it's just a boomer shooter, as they're called nowadays, but I'm sure you know what I'm getting at. I didn't have the fortune of owning Blood back when I got into the PC gaming scene, but thanks to GOG and the somewhat modern re-release, I knew I wanted more. Then I found Blood 2 on an abandonware website way back when, and gave it a shot, and was completely underwhelmed. GOG now sells Blood 2, so I obtained it to try playing it again for this review that you are currently watching, and that opinion stands, if it's not a bit worsened. In Blood 2, you remain in control of the anti-hero Caleb. He's going after a man named Gideon, who is using some sort of strange singularity generator or some BS to summon Caleb's friends and enemies alike. Truth be told, the story is pretty weak, and I didn't care enough to pay attention to it. Sadly, that's an ongoing issue with this game. But before I lament about what the game should have been, let's talk about the gameplay. Blood 2 is an FPS, where you run around some linear stages shooting anything that moves. The first stage takes place on a moving train, as humans in suits are firing their pistols at you while you are shooting them with your pistols. After such a memorable opening in the first game, this feels a bit strange. You have a basic Beretta pistol that you're using, not a pitchfork and flare gun. Surely it gets better. Until you realize that the game is glitchy as hell right from the start. I had to do some heavy patching using stuff I found on the internet that fans have made to make the game run even remotely well on modern systems. After talking with a few friends that have owned the game on release, it was buggy back then too, so it should be noted that if you do want to play the game, be prepared to perform a bit of surgery on the game's files. Anyway, I went a bit off track there. Back to the gameplay. You run through about a dozen train cars, get to the end, and crash into another train. Moving into the next stage, you find yourself in the back alleys of some unknown city, with more suits gunning for you. You'll then find more weapons in the forms of an SMG, assault rifle, Gatling gun, sniper rifle, rocket launcher. Wait, hold on. Am I playing Blood or Call of Duty? Sure, some of the more unorthodox weapons such as the flare gun, voodoo doll, and life fleet's return, but the majority of the guns you'll encounter here are just lame weapons that you'll find in 99% of the other FPS games that you'll ever play. Blood used to pride itself on being unique. Aerosol cans that are made into a makeshift flamethrower using a Zippo to light sticks of dynamite. These were just fun to use, and hearing Caleb's giddy laugh as he erupted his foes in flame just made them better. In Blood 2, these modern weapons just feel out of place. Yeah, you still get a double-barreled shotgun, napalm launcher, and Tesla cannon, but these are pale imitations of the fun, powerful weapons you grew to love. In fact, the majority of the guns in Blood 2 lack any sort of real punch. Sure, enemies will show damage by way of sprays of blood that reminds me of the PS2 Mortal Kombat games, but enemies don't typically react to being blasted in the face with a howitzer. Speaking of enemies, most of the foes you go up against are just boring human beings. Again, referencing the source material, we are used to fighting horrific creatures. Undead zombies, evil cultists, angry gargoyles, poisonous spiders, and screeching banshees are just a small amount of monsters that are hunting for your soul in the older game. Here you have the suits, you have a slightly armored private army, and you have a mutated humanoid creature that appears to be blind but isn't, that make up the primary set of enemies. Yes, there are some less than human creatures that you'll fight, but these aren't very interesting, and you'll actually get more irritated when you run into them. These insectile beasts spit acid or poison or something at you, and will lunge at you, oftentimes landing on the top of your head and start spinning around, looking absolutely ridiculous as they hover in midair. Hulking beasts will spit fireballs at you. A sorcerer will disappear and teleport every time you shoot them, while flinging magical blasts your way. The bestiary is uninspired, matching the rest of the game. You may have noticed that I've been playing with God mode enabled for a good chunk of this playthrough. Normally, I try to avoid cheats when playing games for a review, but this game drove me to madness. That's because most of the non-human enemies are bullet sponges in the worst way. I shouldn't have to go through half of my weapon reserves just to fight a normal non-boss enemy. Enemies shouldn't tank literally all my howitzer shells and not even flinch as they're eating the rockets. It's absolutely infuriating, and bosses are the worst. I wasn't even sure that I was even harming this one. Then you get to encounter it a few more times in later levels. And to be honest, after a while I just started running ahead and not even bothering to waste my time shooting them. And this is a cardinal sin of an FPS. If you have no intention to shoot an enemy, then that FPS is badly designed. And yes, Blood 2 is horribly designed. To compound the fact that enemies are bullet sponges, Caleb himself is not, which is strange because Caleb is supposed to be immortal. And these enemy mercenaries are laser accurate. Health power-ups like ammo seem somewhat scarce, meaning that you'll run into situations that almost feel impossible to complete unless you reload an older save and try to maintain your health better. This is ultimately what moved me to enable cheats. I can deal with shooting enemies with 100 shotgun shells, but when I only have 10 health and there are mercs with assault rifles that do hit scan damage to you at the top of a ladder that I need to climb and I don't even have a chance to get to them first? Well, even I have my limits. I should also note that sometimes enemies feel like they resist certain ammo types. How can a creature eat 20 howitzer shells but later succumb to 2 shotgun blasts? What about the enemies that will live through 200 bullets but 2 sniper rounds to the leg will send them to their grave? It all feels completely random and helps lend to the fact that you occasionally feel like you are just shooting at a range and wasting ammo. Just like the weapons, enemies, and gunplay, the levels themselves are also bland. The train is a decent intro level, but you encounter this stage multiple times in the future, with the same running into another train car gag repeating multiple times. The city you explore later is dark and foreboding, but again, you revisit the level later on in the game with minimal changes. Plus, you leap into a small body of water and find out that the game boasts some of the worst swimming mechanics of any game ever. You'll feel like you're trying to swim through a lake of molasses while wearing a diving suit made entirely of concrete. You'll also romp through a lab with sterile-looking corridors and plenty of screens that you don't know if you can interact with or not. Yeah, sometimes you need to press a button that doesn't look like a button to open up a blocked pathway. But you never would have knew this just by looking at the panels. There's no marking to show that yes, you can press a key to push this button. It does tend to force you into a little bit of aimless wandering until you figure it out. Or just say F it, I'm using the no clip sheet, which I did a few times. Either way, these environments make the game feel more like a Duke Nukem 3D successor than Blood. Again, the original game had a lot of fun stages. An evil monastery, a carnival complete with mimes, a pirate ship. Even the cities you do run through were much more fun than the lackluster alleys you encounter here. So where are the unusual levels in this game? The closest you really get is on a large airship, but this is just a confusing mess of a stage that quickly loses its appeal. At least the game retains some of the humor. Caleb keeps his trademark one-liners even if they don't hit as hard as the original game. He also continues to remain snarky towards Gideon during every encounter with him.
Hello.
The choice is yours. Walk now and live. Stay and die.
I'm staying.
Then you're dying.
Sadly though, this is not enough to keep you motivated to finish Blood 2. You would be hard-pressed to find a lot of enjoyment with Blood 2 The Chosen. The poor enemy designs and AI, along with the weapons that lose all uniqueness from the original game, just make Blood 2 feel like a bog-standard shooter that forgot what made the original game so much fun. It's a shame that Blood 3 never surfaced, but let's be honest here. If it was more of Blood 2, we're all better off that way. Final score? 2 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.